This is all improv. Yeah, exactly. So please, a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy. Hey there.
Wow, twins.
Well, what do you mean?
You look so much alike.
He's got a beard.
But your clothing is exactly the same. And you're wearing the same jersey as I am, so we're on the same team.
Well, that's where I think we disagree, partner. See, we're from the Twin Cities. We came down here. So we got a couple questions for you.
Yeah. And I'm wearing a rust-colored shirt. Go on.
Well, we were just talking about how y'all's district voted for one person and voted for the other person, the other team, and we don't understand that.
You see, we like to think of teams as being dialectical. You should look that up. I know I'm not just a rural voter, but I have a dictionary and Google.
Hold on, I'm going to write it. Post it. We're going to put this on the door.
Please don't. I just painted that.
Sorry, we got to keep our notes. And then we have a harvest, and we'll share all the information together.
You're patronizing me by using crop metaphors. I do animal husbandry, and yeah, I don't care if that sounds sexual.
No, well, depending upon what kind of husbandry, I don't know if we agree on that either. Yeah.
Do you like bacon?
Well, I love.
Then we agree.
Oh my gosh. Jennifer, we are going to be represented. I know, Jennifer.
Daisy.
The student council will have our voices together. The student council will know of your plan.
No more hall passes. They're oppressive.
They are, and mine's a different color than yours because of some forced tribalism.
And redistricting.
No. It's been a terrible year at Mount St. Academy. Mount St. Academy is it's a beautiful name for a horrible place.
And a horrible name for a beautiful place.
Yes, all at once. It's so complicated. But I think, Jennifer, our policies will go through now. No more of these hall passes with different colors.
No more organizing lockers by people's height, because that's just rude.
And also, we're a middle school, so it's really changeable. Very difficult.
Stacy,
Jennifer,
I never thought I'd see this day.
me neither. We can go out into the light again. They kept us underground at Mount St. Academy. I'm calling together an order of the Southwest Light Rail Transit Fan Club. And it's adjourned. We have everybody here.
Thank you for coming to my public garden. I appreciate that.
Well, we like to get out and do field trips, see where the light rail's going to pass right through.
Do you know that over 15 families have tasted my eggplant?
That's incredible.
No, it's just good business. I take it over to the co-op, and you're going to put a train right over this?
But it's a train you can ride.
To where? I live here.
Don't you want to go somewhere?
Hey, I like it here. Everyone comes to me, apparently. That's great.
Guys, I think we got a T14er here.
A T14er?
Yeah! Just like those people who wanted the T14 to be 4 lanes instead of 2 lanes.
Oh.
Everyone got the reference now.
Yeah. Wait a minute, I've been a T14er for way too long. I want to be an SWLRT-er.
Yeah.
Wow, putting an acronym on yourself makes you feel so much more human.
I'm just feeling a little worried that if they have things, then we'll have less things. And I like having more things, and I generally dislike having less things.
That makes sense. You should go into politics. Yeah. What are you going to do about the fact that people don't have exactly the same amount of things?
I want, like, equality, but only if it's for me.
Equality.
I know it's been a bit ambiguous lately, what's been going on
No idea what's going on.
between us.
Yeah. Ambivalent even both ways.
And I think it's time we define the relationship.
Oh my God! I have benefited from this relationship. I'm not going to define it.
Listen, I understand that. It's just got a lot easier. I understand that things aren't always on a binary scale, but I think that this still merits a conversation about who we are to each other.
It does. When people ask me about my identity, I say, first off, I'm a member of a threesome. It's like, you don't want that anymore, and I can't understand why.
I get it.
Also, we're running for governor.
Three of us. Wait a minute.
All three, never before in Minnesota has there been a three governor.
This is going to be big for ranked choice.
All right, I'm going to be your counselor at Camp Bachman. Are you ready to learn?
What's there to learn? The Earth was created in 6 days.
Whoa! Sounds like somebody thinks they're a counselor, too.
Go on.
Well, it's easy. Actually, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm out of ideas. I just showed up with a whistle and they said, teach.
And so you chose me.
Well, you seem to know a lot.
Well, because when the student's ready, the teacher appears. But it's something. It's true. I want to help you.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
That's what Camp Bachman's all about.
Well, no, yes. Come on.
Okay.
All right, I want you to look out there. See all those campers out there on the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not either good or bad. They're human beings.
What?
Yeah, I know. They have needs that they have to sometimes repress for the greater good, but they still have those needs and they should not be demonized.
Whoa.
Yeah, camp is fun, isn't it? Yeah. Listen, I have this s'more that I've been warming up in my pocket. Why don't you take it?
For me?
Well, you could share it, or you could eat it all yourself. That's the lesson that I want. The lesson that I want to share. I went to this McMasterson Catholic school. It doesn't, I can't. Have
It's real gooey.
It is gooey, isn't it? Now imagine if everybody had that goo in their mouth, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to talk, and you could rule.
Whoa!
I know. So I just used a metaphor to teach.
I'm gonna give you the whistle.
Thank you.
You deserve it. You should get out there.
I'm going to. You're right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. You got any more s'mores?
Where do I put these 10 commandments?
Right by the courthouse.
Yes, I mean, I have so many suitors.
Hello, lady.
Yes, and your pitch is,
Well,
what can you bring to my table?
my dearest, my heart has been longing for a rural voter.
Speak more on that. You're so charming with your beard.
With a great weight that I admit the breadth and the depth of the distance between the urban and the rural voters. It's almost as if we can't communicate. We choose not to, but my dearest, I want that to become the past as we find a new future together.
Is it destiny?
I do believe it's destiny.
When I look into your eyes,
Look into my eyes.
we look like Minnesota. It's no surprise.
I'm just that little tiny blue bit in a couple of surrounded by.
Whoever could have thought the two of us could be
Together!
Minnesota. We look like Minnesota.
We look like Minnesota!
So Minnesotan.
So Minnesota!
So many lakes and
of the depths of our understandings that understand each other's depths.
It's almost as if you could fill Lake Superior with our understandings. It's so deep.
And covered in zebra muscles.
Tim, I do think I need to look further.
My lord, my lady, a BLT for both of you.
Thank you.
That's pork. You know what? You're a rock, and I'm a cow, and we're not being heard. Here I am. That hooves, and I utter out for everybody to see. Look, nothing. I'm pissed.
I've been here for ages! Ages, and I've got so many layers of knowledge and experience and history.
I have so many hormones that I have body hair under my hooves.
Anyone have any opinions on local or district transit?
Yes! Yes! Moo!
Anyone? Anyone?
I'm ruminating on it. Dang it all.
I'm glad she couldn't hear that pun. I like that we can talk. I do like that we can talk.
You're the only one who listens to me, and I'm sorry about the thing that happened earlier.
Well, yeah, but it woke me out of my slumber with the magic of your urine.
Gross. You can move? You're a rock, you're like lava.
Well, yes, I'm igneous rock. There's also got layers like a sedimentary rock. The magic of your urine, I tell you.
I'm a Guernsey cow.
Well, that's pretty cool, too. They get very rich
Here she
milk.
comes again.
Anyone have any opinions on whether climate change is being directly affected by the animal industry and methane released into the atmosphere from cows?
It's my fault I have methane.
Anyone?
That's mine, sorry. I'll stop if you quit breeding me for food.
Man, I'm just gonna keep voting how I feel.
Which, perhaps we can't reach them through words. Maybe we can through song.
I've been dying for you to say that.
I'm glad.
Wow, that's stereotypical.
I thought it would be a rock song, but that's all right.
See, that was bad fun. That was worse.
Magical urine. We're between a rock and a cow in a hard place. We don't get hurt because demographically we're scarce.
We're also not human.
That's the thing too, but we're affected by climate change.
Which I cause because I eat grass.
And I am eroding all the same.
I taste like beef. The thing is, they're never gonna hear us unless we get a representative who actually recognize that we are anthropomorphic and they never will.
What's hard? For some reanimated cows and rocks.
I can't sign petitions because I have hooves.
And those stupid hawks.
Still, it isn't fair because we share the earth with Republicans and Democrats.
And those independents too.
Thank you, Bernie Sanders, for nothing.
Well, got you, cowboy. And,
Oh, you go.
you've always got me too.
I'm deep in your veins.
Yeah. Oh, your king.
My voice is super gravelly.
So, please help me and welcome me back to
to the stage our guests, Peggy Flanagan and Tim Walz. I probably didn't give enough credit to the fact this isn't just like any jack-o'-lantern that happened. This was a gift from the Walz Flanagan campaign. They made this. So I don't know if there's like a talent section of the governor's race, but there should be. And this is much better than balancing a book on your head. So this is the part of the show where we open up for you all to ask questions of our guests, but we like to give you a chance to practice. So if you would like to turn to the person next to you and ask them a question that you actually would like to ask of our guests, you'll have a chance to rehearse a little bit and make a friend. All right, ready, set, go.
I'm a city person who grew up in northern Minnesota. And you mentioned mining. And Governor Dayton just came out for the polymet mining designed to course the 8th district and not screw it up before the gubernatorial election. So anyway, you mentioned mining and you mentioned building consensus. I'm wondering, what is your plan to build consensus over a proposed copper nickel mine, which has never been done anywhere in the world without causing massive environmental destruction? In a city like Ely, where when I grew up and they were developing the boundary waters, they were putting that through, the town was divided. People were being, burned in effigy, fights at school. The town now is more divided than it was when the boundary waters was being developed. So anyway, I want to know what your views on the mine. Should it go ahead? Should it not? And then what is your plan to ensure that our environment does not get eaten up by this?
Yeah, and this is one of those that people said, well, stay away from those issues. That's one of the first things I did was go up there, and if someone's running for governor, they should take these tough issues on. They should walk the land. They should see where it's at. I'm a canoeist, unabashed, boundary waters, been up there many, many times. And I think, first of all, what Governor Dayton said, and I think it's really important we be very specific on things, he said that he supported the process going forward. There has been no environmental impact statement done yet, and there has been no mining permit issued. That will mean following all the rules that are in place, the stringent rules that the state of Minnesota can put in place. And I think for all of us, we must follow the science, we must follow the rules that are in place, but if we can, and this is the if we can do it, we should do it. And be very clear about this, that the copper nickel mining is very dangerous, as you said. There is risk associated with it. Also, the copper, though, is the key component to a renewable energy economy, because climate change is also really, really dangerous to the survival of the planet. So trying to come up and build the consensus starts with the respect for people who make a living by mining minerals is one of the foundational principles that built the land. That was taconite mining, not copper nickel mining. But with that being the case, my position has been, let's let the science come out, let's follow the processes in place. Should it be deemed that this is possible to do it, make sure you have all of the safeguards and the liabilities in place, and then you look at each one of these. Polymet is different than other proposed mines. Take a look at that and move forward. And so,
anything you want to add?
So, and you should stay after and talk to us, because you clearly have more to say. So we should talk.
Really
yeah, and not right now, but we should talk about it. Okay. I see you. Okay, I see you. So one of the things that came up is when one of the first votes that I took when I joined the legislature was on expanding or extending unemployment benefits for folks up on the range. And I got a lot of shit. I'm just going to say it. I got a lot of shit from my colleagues.
You allowed to say that on this show?
I think so. I just did. From some of my colleagues about that vote. Because part of it said, mining is great forever and ever and ever, is essentially what it said. And the reason that I voted in favor of extending those unemployment benefits is because I know what it's like to be a kid who sits at a table, who has a parent who looks at them while they're eating and they're not eating because there's not enough food in the house. So I say that because when we talk about these issues, and frankly, the article that recently came out in the New York Times that some of you may have seen about mining, it was so disrespectful to folks who live where you're from. And people who are only trying to support their kids, right, and their families. So unless we can have a conversation that starts from that place of I see you and the fact that you are trying to stay where you're from and you're trying to provide for your family, and I respect that, I don't want to have that conversation unless that's where we start on both sides. Sorry, I just feel really
know there's a
passionate
lot more
about
to say on
that
this,
issue.
but I have like a dozen hands before I even opened it up. So I have one right here.
Congressman, my name is Nico. I am a 7-year counselor at American Legion Boys State, which you have come and taught at before. And what we do there is we educate the youth about civics. Minnesota is widely known for having one of the highest rates of civic participation in voting.
Yes.
We're coming up to a midterm election, and people really don't give a damn about midterm elections.
Yeah.
What do you foresee your team doing in the next year to really reach out and make people care about the election as it comes? Because I feel that in this election climate and in this political season, people are disinclined to participate, especially after they saw that in the last election, even though the popular vote was won, the system went the other way around. So what do you foresee doing to get people to care more?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the work on Boys and Girls State. I oftentimes get out there to speak on that. One of my former students was a Boys State governor, if I recall that right, from Mankato, and so that's an important piece. Yeah, I agree with you on this. First of all, the idea of voter participation on the mechanics side of this, we should be making it as easy as possible to vote. We should be making sure there's no barriers. We should be making sure people are reestablished. That piece of it, but I do think it is a fair argument to make. We should be voting on Saturday. We should be having everybody registered. We should be getting felons able to get their voting rights back. All the things we know we care about, but his question was more specific and more important almost, I think, than that. How do we motivate people to care about this? The system matters, that they're being reflected. And we made a conscious effort on this. There's many different ways you can run a campaign. You can run them top down with ads. You can do all the different ways of looking at this. We were very adamant that this campaign must be run the way you're talking about. It must be people-powered. It must be grassroots. We've seen this happen once in a while. It's our job together, building the coalition, to get people excited about this, for them to believe this is not a Walz-Flanagan campaign. This is a Minnesota campaign. This is a campaign to improve their lives if they actually have something. You know what gets people out. You know what gets people excited when they believe that their candidate is speaking their heart, speaking their values, and getting out that they believe they can make a difference. And I think we feel very strongly about that, of trying to get as many people engaged as we can.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is what I spent my career doing, both through just my work in the legislature, but more importantly, before that, my work with Walz Action. So traveling across the country, engaging people in how to have conversations about issues they really care about. So I ran the Native American Leadership Program at Walz Action, where we put voter engagement plans into communities. And the only way that worked was when we were able to answer the question, why does it matter and why should I care? And meeting people where they're at. I think so often people are like, there's all these voters who are apathetic. Oh gosh, those other people who stay home and just don't care as much as I do. That's not true. We're just not talking to people about the issues that are most important to them. And so, when I think about what this looks like, again, it's going to folks in communities. It's not waiting for people to come to us. I think that's the mistake that we make over and over again. If people just cared enough, they'd show up. Well, we got to give them a reason to care.
Okay.
Sorry.
I
I
have
could talk
a
a
hand-
lot about voter engagement.
I had a hand up here and I lost it. There it is, right there.
Hey, I'm curious, given all the cuts coming in the proposed budget to schools and healthcare and all kinds of stuff, how you feel like Minnesota can protect the kids?
Yeah, certainly, again, one of the reasons I said I'm coming back and run for governor is that these decisions are going to be at the state level. And to be very honest with you, we're going to have to build a firewall against some very, very bad policies. You saw a budget come out last week, and budgets are far more than fiscal documents. They're moral documents on what we care about. And we talk about, and again, any voter, I think it's important to understand, I believe at the heart, people want to see a prosperous state. They want to see opportunities for kids. And it's our responsibility to make the case to people, how do you best invest those taxpayer dollars for a return to them? How do you get them excited about believing that makes a difference? Make the case, and the educator in me as a teacher, all of us in, Ed 101, Maslow's hierarchy, we as Democrats tend to focus on self-actualization. Make the case why those investments return us 12-1 for early childhood education. Make the investment why having every child ready with pre-K, universal pre-K, gives us the opportunity to make sure they're prepared. And if you have to, if it's not a moral imperative to allow each child to reach their full potential, we're going to have a better qualified workforce that is going to make you more money for your company if you invest in this. Whatever it takes to motivate you, it makes moral sense, it makes economic sense, but I don't think we've done a good job of telling voters what their investment is, what they're getting out of it, and then they're able to label us, oh, Democrats want to just throw more money after it. I've said this, again, with a radical thing for education is fund it correctly and respect your teachers and make sure we're able to retain and keep those folks in the classroom. That's the radical proposal.
Woo! Right. Well, and I think that's right. And we have lots of conversations at the Capitol about those people. Those people who use the Child Care Assistance Program, those people who use SNAP, those people who use Section 8. I am those people. And so when we think about, the folks who are coming back to, what we talked about before, the people who are at the table making decisions, so often they're disconnected from those who are actually affected by the decisions that we're making. One of the things that was most surprising to me when I got to the legislature is I literally heard, hey guys, make sure that there's people who support your bills who come to testify in support of them. And people looked around and I was like, what are we doing? Unless these come from people, we shouldn't be introducing them. So when we talk about these issues, the decisions that Republicans made last session, in particular around the Health and Human Services bill, are appalling. I sit on that committee. We had hundreds of people come in to testify, to tell us heartbreaking stories about themselves, about their children, the people they love and care about. We parade them out and then we punch them in the gut. Because we say there's just not enough money because we're going to give $100 million to big tobacco. No way. So when we talk about there's not enough money, our priorities are all wrong. And so when we look out, if you want to get really nerdy about it for a second, if you will with me, there's not money in the tails. We have funded money for the next 2 years, and then we are going to be in a deficit because of this Republican-controlled legislature. So my hope is that we get there in 2018 to protect the most vulnerable folks in this state, because that is what we are called to do.
Okay, I got a question here.
What specific policies would you enact to address the economic and educational disparities within communities of color?
So I think so often when we talk about these issues, we think there's one solution, right? Kids don't come in pieces. Families don't come in pieces. We need to make sure that we have access, that families have access to livable wages, housing, access to health care. But when we think about a lot of these gaps, listen, the first time I ever saw a teacher who looked like me, I was a sophomore at the University of Minnesota. It changed everything. So when we think about what educational equity looks like, it looks like students like myself seeing themselves reflected in their teachers, being intentional about creating those pipelines to have kids see themselves in leadership positions. It has to do with curriculum, with telling kids the truth, right? And who we are and where we live and where we are as a state. We've got laws on the books right now that say you have to teach kids about the people who lived here first, that are not enforced.
Ooh, how would you enforce them?
Well, having a lieutenant governor that's native is a good place to start. I don't know, right? But also, again, even just the lesson that we just went through in remodeling the Capitol, of the images that young people see there when they walk in there, right? Like, I don't know, the Battle of New Ulm is not like a really welcoming photo or welcoming painting for folks like myself. So when we think about that, we've also created opportunities to represent the historic piece of it, but also say, and this is what it meant and what it continues to mean to like contemporary Native people. And I don't think that kids can handle the truth of what has happened in history, and we have to tell that real history and make sure, again, kids see themselves reflected in their teachers, in their curriculum, and that we're being intentional about opening the door so that more kids see teaching as a pathway to them.
I think this policy, it's a great one. In the state of Minnesota, for all the great things we do, being first in opportunity gap amongst our children of color, being first in incarceration rates of people of color, until we decide this, these are not opportunity gaps of communities of color, they're Minnesota opportunity gaps. And as long as we call them opportunity gaps of communities of color, it becomes someone else's problem. It is not owned by us altogether. That is a mistake we made, and I think it's together with these hard policies and changing this, that opportunity gap that is happening in those communities is pulling the entire state in a direction that we can't find acceptable. It doesn't make us stronger. It doesn't make us more equitable, and we all need to own that. It's how we talk about it.
Okay, we have a couple of questions I have to promise to get to. I'm sorry, I've already promised a couple of people I was going to come to them. So.
Excuse me. Thanks. If you win next year, you will most likely have a Republican legislature that you'll have to deal with. So how will you address the fact that you'll have split government and to get some of your policies enacted?
Yeah, no, this is the really important piece, and I think that's one of the things that I would make the case that I bring to this. About a month and a half ago, the New York Times did a story, and they said, if you want to know how Congress is supposed to work, drop the mic. And if you want to know how Congress is supposed to work, look no further than the VA committee. And I serve as the Democrats' ranking member on there to a Republican, Phil Rowe from Tennessee. I need a translator to understand the guy. We come from different worlds, different places. But we found a working relationship that's predicated on we have the same goals, we share many of the same values, and how do we get to those outcomes? I think it is really important